Okay, welcome back to my channel, guys. In this video, I'm about to teach you how to write a line graph with the simplest strategy actually I've ever seen. To be honest, I always consider that strategy the simplest one to write, to describe line graph. And you can also use that strategy for other type of task 1 essays, but this strategy fits best with this one. Okay, let me show that strategy. Actually, I have written this essay recently. However, I've just forgotten to record my screen, and I have just made some kind of words underlined, and I just taught you this very long time. However, I just forget to record my screen now. I'm about to show how I wrote this essay within about 15 minutes actually. Okay, let me show you line graph. Line graph below shows percentage of spending in a European country from 1960 to 2000. Okay, we have to see records like food held the first spot. Okay, and leisure is the second, clothing, transport, energy. Okay, actually I have already seen all of records information carefully. Now here is how I wrote. Okay, I just paraphrase it. Line graph shows, demonstrates, illustrates. All of them. You can use this, and you also know how to paraphrase. Like you just have to use alternative words instead of the given ones. And overall in the line graph, we have to give some overall information. For example, we write overall, and I just wanted to give just overall information like first of all I've mentioned the recording in the first year. I mean, which was the highest one, and in the last year's lowest one, something like this. For example, you can see at the beginning of the period, like here. I mean, in this means in 1960, food accounted for the largest proportion of spending. The yellow one exactly. This stood at the highest portion of the spending, and I have written like this. And the reason why I made this word underlined is that accounted for the largest or lowest. This word is very good to use, and even other people like who got 9, even examiners just use this word because this fits really good. And while energy had the lowest share, right? Energy, like black one, stood at the lowest point, and I just described it like this: had the lowest share, right? Yes, it stood at the lowest share, I think. While I don't have to explain detailedly. While you can use these to give two process. Yes, and noticeably, I was about to give one more information, like writing noticeably or something like this. Interestingly or ironically, you can use all of them. It depends on your knowledge. And closing, right? Closing, green one, closing. Although closing was at a very lower pay percentage, it surpassed all of categories. And I describe it like this: closing surpassed. You can use this word as well. Surpassed all 4 categories at the end of the period. Right, in the end of the period, it just surpassed other categories. Yes, here, it's standing at the highest percentage, like green one, right? Yes, you can see this. And the other my body paragraphs, like, okay, my strategy is that first of all, after paraphrasing and having written overall, I always describe the first year's information in the first body, and in the second body, I always write the last year's information, just recordings. For example, like this: in 1960 and in uh, 2000, and in the third body, you don't have to be panic like should I write three paragraphs, three body paragraphs? No. However, it's really good, and you just have to spend only 164 words. And that's a little bit higher than the limit, guys. Okay, let me just explain my bodies. In 1960, here, I always describe these, uh, how can I say, this information, these standings. For example, food, right, the yellow one, held the first spot in terms of spending, right? Food, yes, yellow one, hold, what I'm about to say, held the first spot, right? First spot. It's standing at the first spot, yeah, or at the first. How can I explain this? I think you are understanding what I'm saying. First, but in terms of, you also know what it means in terms of, or you can say like this: held the first spot. I think this word, the reason why I made it underline is that this word fits really good. So you just also have to use this word. Okay? In terms of spending, right? We have been given like spending, percentage of spending, right? And we have to write like this. And okay, we write whether it held the first spot or not, and we also have to at what percentage it held, it did so, and accounting for our 30%. Okay, the reason why I made this underline is that accounting for means that account with this word you can show the percentage your category or the category you are describing stood at. Okay, I think you are understanding me. You also know this, or food held the first in terms of spending, and accounted for our 40%. Okay, in order to just avoid repetitive or just you know how can I say, okay, I think you are understanding this. Yeah, redundancy. For example, you can also write like this, uh, and accounted for over 13%. But instead of writing like this, our our first sentences is better. Spending accounting for, okay, accounting for hour. Okay, while, I think you know what means while, and no, there is no need to explain this. While leisure, like blue one, here there is a big difference between their standings, stood at 20%, right? Yes, it stands at, or it stood at 20%. Okay, we have already described two categories, and the third one, first one, and fifth one. Transport, you know, Yes, transport here. Transport came here after closing, but closing came here after transport. Okay, there is no need to point out this. Okay, transport, the blue, I mean red one, transport remained at 10%. Okay, remained at. You also use this word to show what kind of percentage your category is standing at, right? Okay, blue one, I mean red one is standing at 10%, right? Yes. And with closing following closely, okay, instead of this, if you use okay, let me open bracket, while or whereas closing followed closely. If you use whereas, you don't have to write, you don't have to add ing to follow verb. Instead of ing, you just have to give past version of it. Or if you use this, you have to give ing instead of ed, right? You know this, I think. And here comma constituting, and this word also means that accounting for, but there is no need to use for. Constituting can be enough, okay? Or you also write like this, and following closely or followed closely and constituted 9%. Instead of writing like this, we have improved our language, like constituting instead of adding and. Okay, I think you are understanding what I'm saying. Okay, closely. Okay, let me just delete them, and you can, you know, you can see the difference. Which one is better, or you can also compare them. And we described four categories here, and the last one is energy left. Okay, energy. In contrast, you can use like some kind of linking words in turn, like energy represent approximately 5%, right? Energy stood at between 0 and 10, I mean between their middle, right? And it means 5%. Represented, illustrated, demonstrated, showed, had means the same. So you can use all of them. Like this. Had, showed, okay? Uh, you can write like this. Okay. Our first body paragraph is over. We described this year's information, okay? Only this year's information. For example, if energy's share started from this year, you don't have to add this category to this year. Uh, you only have to describe this year's information, and if it starts from this year, you can write it in the last body paragraph. I will teach it soon. Okay, and in the second body we have, I mean in the first body we have already described this. We have to give this year's information in the our second body. Okay, okay. In the second body, we have to, as I mentioned above, describe this year's information. Like, okay. First of all, we look at this closely. Okay, in the first spot, we can see closing, right? Green one, closing, and food in the second spot, and leisure and transport and energy in this order. Okay, in 2000, we can start our body paragraph like this. Closing became the highest category, right, exactly. Closing, like green one, is in the first spot, right, became the highest category. It means it's in the first spot. Okay, reaching about 15%. Okay, let me just explain it again. And or instead of reaching about reaching like this ing, you could have I could have write like this, and reached about 15%. Both means the same, and reached about 15 or reaching about 15%. Okay, in this case, uh, we delayed this one in order to avoid redundancy. Okay, this is good idea, I think. And whereas also means while, something like this. You also know this word. Whereas food had a slightly lower percentage, right? Food, like yellow one, closely very uh, followed very closely, like with a difference of only 1%, right? And we are describing this. Whereas food had a slightly, not marginally or not dramatically, just slightly, very little difference it means. Okay, I have already made it underlined. You just have to use this word if there is a very little difference between your percentage. Okay, about 13%. Uh, Never miss here, using comma. Okay, about 15%. And the leisure one, the second one is leisure. Okay, here, uh, in the in this year, leisure is standing at the third spot, so we are describing it in the third order. Okay, like this one came first, and food came secondly, and leisure came thirdly. Okay, leisure stood at or showed. You can choose to use these words. One of them, stood at or showed more than 10%, right? Leisure here stood at, this line means 10%, and leisure is standing a little bit higher. Okay, stood at 10%. And while transport was, okay, transport, this red one, transport was marginally lower at 5. It means, what means marginally lower? Transport was very lower than leisure. Okay, than leisure. Transport was lower than leisure. Our sentence means that. Okay, marginally lower at 5%. I just made it underline, and you just have to use this uh, in order to show your flexibility in terms of your uh, lexical resource. And the last one, why I put this comma? Okay, last one is energy. Energy is left undescribed. Okay, so we describe it in 2000, like energy, or you can use lastly. Okay, lastly, the energy decreased to nearly 0%, right? Yes, it only decreased, did not have any fluctuations, or like did not go up or did not go down. So it decreased, and it decreased to nearly 0%. Okay, right? This line means 0%, and it's very close to this line. decrease it to nearly some kind of percent. You can use these words also as well. Uh, these underlined words are very good. Okay, and okay, let me just explain one more time my strategy. Okay, we described this year's information, right? And we described this year's information as well. And what about this year's information? Okay, hold on. I just give you a way to describe these 2 years information within a one body paragraph. Okay. Okay. Throughout the period, okay, throughout the period means that from this year, from this year to this year, like we are given like from 1960 to 2000 means that here, okay, uh, you can use this as well, but this one fits better throughout the period. Okay, you can use both of them, okay, but this is optional. You can add these to these sentences or not, just skip or ignore, like, okay, throughout the period means that from this year to this year, although food, just yellow one, although food continually went down from the beginning to the end, it means like food uh, went down from here to here. Okay, just continually went down. There is no any fluctuation. There was no any decreasing or increasing points, like, so I write like went down, continually went down from the beginning to the end. Closing, just green one, closing was on an upward trajectory. What does it mean? Was, on an upward trajectory means that it, go up. It only goes up, or it only had very high percentages. So this continually goes up, so we can write like on an upward trajectory. Okay, instead of went up, we used an upward trajectory in order to avoid repetitive words, right? Okay, we described two categories like food and clothing, like this year's information. Okay, uh, you know uh, from the beginning to the end means that these years also. Okay, and leisure, this blue one. Okay, how let's see how I describe. Leisure and transport followed a similar pattern, right? You can see the way they decrease it is very similar, like this line and this line. They are almost parallel to each other. So I use it followed or had or showed, yes, a similar pattern, albeit at different points. This means what? Yes, they have a similar pattern, but they have different points. For example, this stood at 20% and this stood at 10%, and in this year, this stood at less than 10%, and this stood at less than 20%, 10%. Okay, this means, okay, here you can see a little gap between these two lines, so it means I'll be at different points. Finally, the last category is that energy steadily decreased over the period. Then there is no need to explanation for this, because energy decreased from the beginning to the end. Okay, like this, steadily. No dramatically, no marginally, just steadily decreased over the period. Okay, okay, here our video is about to be over. As you can see, I have detailedly explained how this essay has been written. Okay, if you want to see other my lessons, you can just visit my channel and uh, search other videos, and you can watch one of them. Like, I have already uploaded a video teaching task 2 with a really good strategy. Time has come to say goodbye.